Why can a man offer his entire heart, his absolute loyalty, and his constant daily attention to a relationship, yet still find his love completely questioned simply because it did not arrive inside a shiny designer box with an expensive price tag attached? When we study human relationship psychology with complete honesty, we encounter a very deep and confusing pattern in how different people measure affection. A man often views love as an action of the character. To him, love means being faithful, protecting his household, coming home every night, and standing as a solid wall of support for his partner. He believes his silent discipline and his everyday emotional presence are the ultimate proof of his devotion. However, behavioral observations suggest that a woman's subconscious mind is frequently wired to look for physical evidence of care. For many women, an abstract feeling like love becomes real only when it takes a material form that she can see, touch, and show to the world. When a man's emotional effort does not come with material gifts, luxury experiences, or physical presence, a partner's subconscious mind can begin to feel neglected and unloved. Exploring this complex dynamic is not about spreading anger, placing blame, or showing bias against any gender. It is about educating you with clear, simple, and psychologically grounded facts so you can understand the hidden emotional triggers behind relationship decisions, build your own emotional intelligence, and see the real world clearly without getting lost in romantic confusion. Today, we are going to dive deeply into the psychological reasons why material objects carry so much emotional weight, how the human brain links survival with affection, and what happens to a relationship when a partner uses possessions as the only scale to measure your heart. Most people see what happened. Few stop to understand why it happened. If you're here to think deeper, question assumptions, and see beyond the surface, you're in the right place. Subscribe and join the conversation, because better understanding leads to better decisions. To truly grasp why a partner can confuse material gifts with genuine love, we must first examine a behavioral pattern called the concrete validation instinct. In the deep history of human psychology, emotions have always been difficult to measure. You cannot look inside a person's brain to see how much they care about you. Because emotions are invisible, the human mind naturally looks for physical markers to confirm what is happening beneath the surface. Behavioral trends show that a woman's subconscious survival system often views a man's willingness to part with his hard-earned money and material resources as the truest test of his commitment. In her mind, if a man spends his wealth on her, it means he is highly invested in her future and safety. A gift is not viewed just as an object like a watch, a dress, or a piece of jewelry. It is interpreted as a physical piece of his energy and power that he has willingly handed over to her. When a man does not provide these physical tokens, her subconscious mind can experience a deep sense of panic, interpreting his financial silence as a lack of true emotional attachment. This behavioral trend leads directly into a second psychological pattern known as the social display reflex. Human beings do not live in isolation. We live in large communities where our status is constantly being evaluated by the people around us. Behavioral data suggests that a woman's sense of emotional security is often tightly connected to how her relationship looks to her peers, her family members, and her friends on social media networks. When a man gives his partner a luxury item or takes her on an expensive vacation, he is giving her a social tool. She can display this tool to her social circle as clear proof that she is highly valued by a capable man. In her mind, the material gift validates her beauty, her worth, and her standing in the social hierarchy. If a good man provides total emotional loyalty, deep conversations, and absolute kindness, but never provides anything that can be photographed or shown to others, a status-driven partner will feel a severe internal void. She will begin to feel invisible to her friends, and her subconscious mind will mistake her social boredom for a lack of love from her husband. Let us look at a highly detailed, realistic life story involving a couple named Gregory and Alana to see how this exact psychological dynamic operates in the real world and leads to a negative outcome. Gregory was an incredibly dedicated and hardworking heavy machinery mechanic who treated his wife, Alana, with total fidelity and respect. He never stayed out late. He listened to her fears with genuine empathy, and he spent his weekends fixing up their home to make sure she was completely comfortable. Gregory believed his constant physical presence and unshakable loyalty were the greatest gifts he could ever give her. Alana, however, possessed a strong behavioral tendency to connect her self-worth with material possessions. She spent hours every day scrolling through social media, watching other women receive luxury designer bags, expensive bouquets of roses, and surprise trips to tropical islands from their partners. Slowly, Alana's subconscious mind began to view Gregory's quiet loyalty as boring and cheap. She stopped noticing that he washed her car every Sunday or that he held her hand when she was anxious. Instead, she focused entirely on the fact that he did not buy her expensive jewelry or take her to five-star restaurants. She began to complain that he was not putting any effort into the romance, confusing his financial discipline with a lack of love. During this time of internal resentment, a wealthy real estate investor named Philip started frequenting the boutique shop where Alana worked. Philip noticed her desire for luxury and began showering her with expensive perfumes, high-end dinners, and designer accessories. Alana's subconscious shield completely collapsed under the weight of these material gifts. She convinced herself that Philip loved her more than Gregory did, simply because Philip's attention came with a luxury price tag. She began a secret affair with Philip, completely ignoring the fact that Philip was a known deceiver who had no interest in a committed future. When Gregory eventually discovered the hidden gifts and confronted her with total heartbreak, Alana did not show real accountability. She angrily shouted that Gregory had forced her into another man's arms because he never bought her anything nice or made her feel special like a real husband should. The marriage ended in a sudden, devastating breakdown, leaving Gregory completely empty-handed and showing how a person's lack of moral character can turn material greed into a justification for total betrayal. Have you ever seen a real situation where a man provided a stable, peaceful, and honest life, yet his partner discarded him the moment someone arrived with expensive gifts? I encourage you to reflect on this powerful human pattern and share your thoughts in the comments section below. When we break down Alana's actions from an objective psychological perspective, we discover a third major trend known as the satiation threshold illusion. In relationship psychology, we notice that material gifts provide a very quick, intense burst of dopamine, which is the brain's natural feel-good chemical. When a person receives a new possession, they feel a temporary high of happiness and excitement. However, the human brain very quickly gets used to new things, a process known as habituation. This means the excitement of a new handbag or an expensive dinner fades away within a few days or weeks. An economically driven partner will mistake the fading of that material high for a fading of love in the relationship. Instead of realizing that material objects can never fill an internal spiritual void, she will demand bigger gifts, more expensive trips, and higher financial outputs just to feel the same level of emotional validation. The man finds himself trapped on a non-stop treadmill, working themselves to exhaustion to provide luxury, while his partner's subconscious mind remains completely starved of genuine peace because she is trying to solve an internal emotional problem with external consumer goods. Another critical element of this dynamic is a pattern we call the resource substitution fallacy. Many individuals who struggle with deep emotional intelligence believe that money can buy a clean escape from the hard work of building a relationship. Sometimes, this pattern shows up in men who use material gifts to avoid spending real time with their partners or to cover up their own bad behavior. But when a woman is raised in a culture that constantly teaches her that love is equal to spending, she will naturally adopt this distorted view. She will begin to treat the relationship like a business contract where every emotional interaction has a financial price tag. A high-value, grounded individual must realize that when a partner measures your worth solely by what you can buy for them, they are showing you a complete lack of personal substance. They are telling you that their affection is not tied to your human soul, your masculine character, or your shared memories, but is simply a commodity that is up for sale to the highest bidder in the market. When you possess the unshakable psychological maturity to see that genuine commitment cannot be calculated in currency, you stop using your hard-earned resources to bargain for a partner's basic respect. You realize that an independent, grounded man must evaluate his relationship with total logic, observing whether a partner truly values his masculine character or is simply using him as an automated financial dispenser to fund her personal desires. Now, we must examine the final 5 behavioral trends that explain the deep psychological mechanics behind why a partner confuses material objects with love, and how you can use conscious psychological strategies to maintain your self-respect, protect your hard-earned assets, and keep your peace of mind entirely secure. We will look at how the subconscious mind handles changes in social environment, why a man must never let financial manipulation destroy his confidence, and how holding an absolute standard of mutual accountability keeps your entire life perfectly balanced. The fourth major behavioral trend that drives this dynamic is a pattern known as the external identity anchor. In relationship psychology, we observe that individuals who lack a strong sense of internal self-worth will always look for external objects to define who they are to the world. Behavioral data suggests that for a status-driven partner, owning luxury items is not just about the object itself. It is a psychological shield that protects her from feeling ordinary or unsuccessful. When she demands that you buy her expensive gifts, her subconscious mind is actually trying to use your labor to build her own fragile identity. If a good man works honestly but chooses to invest his money wisely instead of wasting it on flashy, temporary items, her subconscious mind registers his financial discipline as an attack on her self-worth. She interprets his refusal to overspend as proof that he does not value her presence, leading to constant domestic tension and an emotional distance that erodes the marriage. If you're still locked in, you're seeing what most people miss. This channel is for thinkers, not reactors. Subscribe if that resonates. Share your perspective below. Now, let's get into the part most people overlook. The fifth behavioral trend to analyze within this dynamic is a pattern called the false equivalence trap. Psychological observations indicate that when a person is raised in an environment that heavily connects material wealth with human value, their brain builds a distorted formula for relationships. They truly believe that the statement, "he spends money on me," is exactly equal to the statement, "he loves me." This false equivalence makes them completely blind to the deeper, non-material indicators of a high-value partner, such as reliability, emotional stability, and unyielding support during life's inevitable crises. When a husband works diligently to build a solid, long-term foundation for the family's future, an economically driven partner will view his long-range planning as a form of stinginess in the present, failing to realize that true love sacrifices short-term showmanship to ensure long-term physical security. The sixth critical truth is a pattern known as the emotional debt cycle. When a man falls into the trap of trying to prove his love by constantly buying material gifts, he subconsciously teaches his partner that her affection is something that must be continuously purchased. Behavioral trends show that this compliance never satisfies the partner's internal void. Instead, it raises the baseline expectation for the next interaction. The moment the man experiences a natural career shift, a business slowdown, or simply decides to prioritize financial health over luxury consumption, the partner's subconscious survival system reacts with sudden anger. Because the relationship was built on a foundation of material transactions rather than mutual respect, she will interpret the drop in spending as a total withdrawal of his love, leaving the man to face the bitter reality that his years of financial sacrifice bought him zero real security. Let us look at a realistic story of positive growth involving a couple named Harrison and Brenda to see how a man can successfully navigate these difficult material expectations by keeping his boundaries high, staying perfectly grounded, and testing for genuine character. Harrison was a highly successful and self-disciplined civil engineer who had built a very comfortable financial life through years of focus and smart investing. When he met Brenda, a corporate interior designer who was highly focused on lifestyle aesthetics, Harrison felt a strong attraction to her intelligence and drive. However, because he understood human relationship psychology, he refused to use his wealth as a tool to impress her. For the first 8 months of their courtship, Harrison drove a very modest, older vehicle, took her to simple, charming local diners, and kept the details of his real estate investments completely private. He wanted to observe her behavioral trends when life was unadorned by luxury. During this deliberate testing phase, Harrison watched how Brenda reacted when he suggested staying home to cook instead of visiting an expensive new restaurant. He noticed that Brenda never showed passive-aggressive disappointment, never drop-hinted about designer items, and frequently expressed genuine gratitude for his time, his deep conversations, and his emotional consistency. She showed that her baseline motivation was aligned with his actual human character, not his net worth. This approach led to a highly positive outcome, because Harrison had the psychological wisdom to mask his resources until her character was proven. He knew their connection was built on a solid foundation of mutual respect. When he finally brought her into his full financial reality and married her, they built an unshakable partnership where material gifts were enjoyed as fun extras rather than used as a mandatory proof of love. Harrison won because he placed logical boundaries above romantic blindness. Do you agree that a man must protect his financial reality until he has fully observed a partner's behavior under simple conditions? I invite you to reflect on this critical strategy and share your thoughts below. The seventh major trend is a pattern we call the transactional reset. A powerful, grounded man must understand that you can never fix a partner's material confusion by giving in to her demands. If a person does not possess the natural emotional intelligence to see your daily sweat, your unyielding loyalty, and your protective presence as the ultimate expressions of love, no amount of expensive jewelry or designer labels will ever satisfy her mind. A high-value individual preserves his masculine peace by ensuring his relationship is a genuine sanctuary of mutual appreciation, refusing to let his life's work be reduced to a series of financial transactions designed to feed a partner's social vanity. The eighth and final psychological truth to master is the provider's sovereignty. Your ability to build wealth, manage resources, and provide security is a core element of your masculine power, and you must always remain the absolute master of how those resources are deployed. You must never allow a partner's social comparisons or material anxieties to dictate your financial choices or undermine your self-worth. When you stand firmly on your boundaries, evaluating a partner by her character, peace, and internal substance rather than her demands for external validation, you guarantee that your household remains a position of absolute strength, clarity, and unshakable truth. By developing the deep psychological insight to understand why people confuse material gifts with love, you become completely immune to financial guilt and emotional manipulation. You stop trying to buy a partner's happiness through constant consumption, and instead stand as a calm, confident leader who offers real security, true stability, and authentic character. By refusing to let external possessions define the value of your heart, and by protecting your boundaries with cold, unyielding discipline, you ensure that you remain the absolute master of your own destiny, allowing you to walk forward into the future with total confidence, mental power, and ultimate pride. If you're still here, you've already done something most people don't. You didn't settle for the headline. You stayed for the deeper layer. In a world that rewards quick reactions, taking the time to understand is becoming a rare skill. That's what this channel is about. Not taking sides, not chasing outrage, but looking beneath the surface to understand the patterns that shape people, relationships, and decisions. If you value conversations that make you think long after the video ends, subscribe and stay connected. And if something in today's discussion stood out to you, share it in the comments. Some of the best insights come from seeing how different people interpret the same idea. Keep questioning, keep learning, keep seeing beyond the obvious. I'll see you in the next one.